Good afternoon, friends. Today we open the live classroom of IGNOU Regional Center Vadagara with a very short session on open education resources. Now many of you would ask me, why do we need to do a session on open education resources? The reason is quite simple. Every day, at least a few students, especially doing their master's degree, do come to me and the staff in IGNOU Regional Center Vadagara and ask us what is the modality for doing research. And one of the major problems that arises as to a research student is to find out the optimum material for doing his research. We all know that much of the resources that we have around us is copyrighted. And if the material is copyrighted, then there are obvious restrictions which determine their use in research activities. So today we are going to introduce you to one of the seminal concepts that has emerged in recent times as far as doing research is concerned, and that is the use of the open education resources. Now if you go into the history of open education resources, you will find that it's not of very great antiquity as such. It is of recent origin, and as such many people are still in the process of getting used to it. Now there are many organizations which are working to encourage the use of open education resources, and we can also contribute substantially to open education resources. Now let us go into the fundamentals and basics of this very important concept, open education resources. Before we understand what the open education resources are, we should go into the seminal concept as to what copyrights are. Now if you have a look at the board, you will find that copyrights are assignable legal rights. They are assignable legal rights which are given to originators of print, film or literary, artistic or musical material produced from time to time. And all this literary, artistic or musical material which is produced from time to time has its own nature of copyright attached to it. So anything that gets published or any kind of intellectual activity which gets fixed in a particular medium has a copyright immediately assigned to it. Now what we should understand primarily is that copyrights, as you see on the bulletin board, are a bundle of rights. Now what do we mean by a bundle of rights? First and foremost, there are a large number of copyrights which are associated with any literary, artistic or other kinds of work. Now why do we say so? Let us imagine a particular situation. Suppose your university or your institution produces a video, an educational video on a particular topic. Now once we produce this educational video, we know that a large number of people are directly or indirectly associated with these educational videos. Who are they? Just let's have a look at them. The academic who has given the script, he has a copyright which is assigned to him, and that has to be protected. There may be an issue with the musical rights, because a person may be assigned the activity of producing music for that particular video that we have just produced, and he has right, that is the copyright over the music that has been produced. Now thirdly, the programmer who has put in a lot of hard work also has a certain right associated with him. Then the institution which has commissioned the work, for example, if IGNOU commissions a work on a certain videographic scripture, then that institution also has a kind of copyright associated with it. That is what we call fundamentally the producer's right. Now what we should understand very clearly is that only reproduction of a work is prohibited. Please remember this, only reproduction of a work is prohibited, whereas the use of ideas is not. Now what do I mean by this? What I mean is very specifically clear, as is given in the kind of document that is produced before you. What it means is that if a certain documentary is produced on 10 commandments, the concept of producing a documentary on 10 commandments itself is not covered under copyright. That is, a person X, Y or Z can make another document on 10 commandments, but not on the same lines of what has already been produced. That is, your work which has already been produced, that should remain as it is. You cannot have the same work being replicated. However, if an idea is different, if a new idea comes through and a new kind of approach to the 10 commandments concept takes place, then definitely another person can create a video or a documentary on the same subject. Now that brings us to the essential question of what is protected and what is not protected under copyright law. Now you can just have a look at the description given on the bulletin board. What is protected? 1. Literary work is protected. 2nd, artistic works are protected. 3rd, music, drama or theoretical works are protected. Multimedia is protected. Software systems and its applications are protected. Now what are not protected? The range is quite very familiar to you, but quite widespread. 1. Ideas. Ideas, as I just told you, are not protected under copyright law. 2nd, logos. That is, these are things which are protected under trademark law and not specifically under copyright law. So if you have a logo, it is not protected under copyright, but it is protected under another form of intellectual property protection, that is trademarks. Then nomenclatures are not protected. That is why you may see that you can give the same name to your daughter or son or to another entity as has already been given by certain other people. So that is definitely not protected under copyright law. Then public domain items, that is, which has run its duration under the copyright regime, are also not protected. So you should very well be clear as to what are the things which are actually being protected under copyright and what are not protected under copyright. Okay, now let us come to the all important issue of what is fair use. Now fair use is something that has to be understood in terms of what is covered under it. Now for beginners, you can just have a look at the chart which is given here. Fair use is defined by the purpose and characteristics for which you are utilizing that particular copyrighted material. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is whether you are using that particular copyrighted material for a profit or a profit-oriented use or a non-profitable use, or you are doing it just for the purpose of public benefit. Many educational activities, for that matter, are covered under fair use because it is a matter of public benefit and most of the educational activities are not done for profit purposes. Second important aspect which defines the concept of fair use is the cost that is endured for creating that copyrighted material. If the cost is prohibitively high, then you can always imagine that the producer would always like to have something in return, and therefore fair use may not easily be applicable in those situations. However, if the cost of production is not that high, then you can always claim that whatever you are using for the current purpose is definitely being covered under fair use because the production cost itself is not very high. Then the third, and I find this one of the most important aspects in the consideration towards what is fair use, and that is how much of the product or how much of the copyrighted material you are actually using in the new work. If you are using a substantial portion of the original work in the new work, then that is definitely not covered under fair use, because that is definitely not fair to use the labor of one person almost in its entirety in a new work which you claim to be your own. So that definitely differentiates the aspect of what is fair use and what is non-fair use. Then definitely the last but a very important point which determines the concept of fair use is the financial implications on the original work. If your subsequent work is going to affect the fortune, the financial fortune of the person who has actually created the first work, then he can always claim that it is not covered under fair use, because you do not have a right to take away the fruits of labor of another person and benefit by it in a very substantial way and thereby reduce his earnings in a maximalist position. So these are basically what we mean by the usage fair use. Now that brings out the aspect of OERs. Till now we have been studying a kind of background as to what leads us to the concept of OER. Now from this point onwards, we will be talking exclusively about the concept of open education resources, or what we call OER for short. The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation defines OERs as teaching, learning and research resources that reside in the public domain. Note it, resides in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use for repurposing by others. So the definition is very clear, and that is put out on the board which comes in front of you. It is very clear that the OER should be teaching, learning or research material. It should exist either in the public domain or should be released under an IPR regime that permits their free use and repurposing by others. So that is the kernel of the definition of what OERs are. Now there are 5 R's which are associated with OERs, and these 5 R's define what OERs are. You can have a look at the list which is given there, and the first of this list on this list is basically your right to retain the particular product or the particular lesson that is covered under OER. The second right that the OER gives you is the right to reuse the material. The third right is the right to revise the material, that is, you can actually revise the material in a way that you want. The fourth right is the right to remix, which means under an OER license you are allowed to mix certain other material, copyrighted or otherwise, with the original material and produce a new one. And finally you are also given the right to redistribute. Now let me put it very clearly that all these rights are not available in every OER in the same proportion. Depending on the kind of leverage that the original author has given you, you can utilize the material by repurposing in the way that is mentioned here. The degrees to which you can retain, reuse, revise, remix and redistribute will definitely differ from case to case. Okay, now students, the next kind of license that is often provided by OER producers is the license NC, which you can just have a look at on your board. What does NC mean? NC means non-commercial, which means that the author will let you to use his product or his work, that is, you can copy, distribute, display and perform his work or even create derivatives, provided that it is not used for commercial purposes. That is, it can be used only for non-commercial purposes. Then you have another kind of OER which is called non-derivative works, which means that the author lets you to copy, display and perform only exact replicas of his work. He does not allow any kind of derivative out of his work. That is, you as a subsequent user can utilize this work only in the exact format that has been given to you. No replicas or no derivatives are allowed, and that symbolization can be visualized in the board that is given in front of you. Another very interesting kind of license which exists under the OER framework is the share alike or SA license. Please have a look at that nomenclature which is given there. The SA or share alike mechanism states that the author shall allow others to distribute derivative works only under a license identical to the license which governs the original work. That is, the license under which you leverage your work shall be the same license under which the original author has attributed to that kind of a work. So if you have a work taken from another person with an SA indication put there, it basically means that you have to give the same license attribution that the original author had given that work. Then comes a very liberal form of OER license, that is the public domain dedication. Here the author is very liberal as far as his OER is concerned. He states that he waives his interest. Just mark this word. He waives his interest in his work and submits his work to public domain so that anyone can utilize that work freely under no restriction from any copyright law. That is, you can use that work very freely and there is no copyright restriction associated with this work, and this is called the public domain dedication, and the symbol is very instructive. You can just have a look at the slide that is given there. Now, there are certain other works which fall under public domain. What do I mean by that? Works or aspects of copyrighted works which the copyright law as such does not protect. Typically these works become part of the public domain because their term under the copyright law has already expired, or these are kinds of work which are not normally covered under the copyright law, and if that is the case, then all these work directly fall under the public domain, and you can easily see the symbolization on the screen. Now, in a composite whole, just see the kind of picturization that each license entails under the OER regime. It is very instructive. There can be various combinations of licenses. For example, you can have a license by the term BYSA, which means it is an attribution license plus a share alike license. That is, you have to attribute, that is, you have to define the author who has worked on it, and you have also to share alike under the same license on which the original author had given out that kind of a work, and you can have a large number of combinations, and you can work out for yourself what these combinations actually mean, and that would be wonderful for your research career as such, because the OERs are going to be a seminal inclusion in all kinds of research in the times to come. Okay, now many of us have this doubt as to where we can actually find the OERs, and what we have to say in this regard is the easiest place to find the OER is on the World Wide Web. Every search engine for that matter gives you an option to actually search the OER. Google, being a very popular search engine, gives you this right in its search page itself. Just have a look at the depiction that is given on the screen. When you go for a Google search, you have to type out the word in the box that is given for searching. Now, just near that box, you have an option settings. You have to click on that settings box. There will be a menu which will be given to you, and under that menu you will find an option advanced search. Now, once you go for the advanced search portion, you can have a new screen coming in front of you, and under the new screen, the last attribution that is available is titled as usage rights. If you click on that, then you will find that under usage rights you have been given a number of options for searching, like not filtered by license, free to use or share, free to use and even use commercially, etc, etc, etc. So except the first one, that is non-filtered by license, the rest of the options which are given are various types of OERs. We have already discussed that in great details. So when you use the kind of search that is free to use or share, you are actually using an OER product. When you use the search option free to use or share even commercially, that is another OER option. So you can easily find the kind of OER you require on your Google search engine itself. I am sure other search engines like Yahoo and others also give such provisions for the persons who search, and therefore it is not at all difficult to identify OERs on the World Wide Web, especially on Yahoo, on Google and such other search engines. Moving a bit further, if you want to search OERs on YouTube, how do you do it? When you search an item on YouTube, you will have an option filter. You click on filter, and next what you find is that there will be a number of options which is given in front of you, and you will have to click on the options Creative Commons, not this word, Creative Commons, and once that is attributed under Creative Commons, it is definitely one or the other type of OER which is going to be displayed in front of you. So I have given the search option tapioca chips, and under tapioca chips I have gone in for a Creative Commons licensing regime, and then I have a long list of search results which have come based on my attribution, and all these come under the Creative Commons license which you can freely use under various degrees of restrictions which the original author had given. So that is also another way of finding audio video material on YouTube which comes under the nomenclature OERs. Now, those students who are used to doing research will agree with me that attribution is a major problem or a complex problem in most research activities. Now, there are various styles of attribution in regular research, such as the APA style, that is the American Publication Association style. In OERs as well, we have our own various types of attribution, and these can be, an example for this can be seen on the screen right away. And one such attribution methodology is the TASL methodology, which is see on the screen right away. Now, what does TASL mean? T stands for title, A for author's name, S for source, and L for license. So what it means is that first, when you attribute, give the title for that particular medium or media which you have taken. Second, give the name of the author. Third, give the source or the link from which you have taken it. And fourth, give the license. License, as we have seen in the kind of derivatives which have been mentioned in our previous slides. So this is the way you have to attribute. We will come to a practical example in this regard. Now, this is a photograph of a train, and this comes under an OER. Now, how have we attributed it? Alaska train, that is the title. That's why we have superscribed it as T. Alaska train is the title of this work. And who is the author of this work? R.T. Narayan. R.T. Narayan has taken this photograph, so you have to attribute it to Mrs. R.T. Narayan, that she is the author of this work, that is A. So we have completed two parts of our work. One is T, that is the title has been mentioned. Second is A, the author also has been mentioned. Now, third comes the concept of source. What is the source? And source is normally a kind of link, that is the link from which you have taken this particular work. So that link has also been given there. that is HTTPS, so on and so forth, and on that we have superscribed it as yes. Now, fourth is the most important aspect, that is the aspect of the kind of license or L that we are talking about. And the license here is Creative Commons.org licenses BY, that is you have to name the author, by whom, and NC, that is non-commercial. It is also under NC and it is also under ND, that is non-derivative. So this particular product or this particular photograph is licensed under BY, that is by, NC non-commercial, and ND, that is non-derivative. So you have to follow those terms of service while utilizing this work. Now the major OER repositories, that is the repositories where you can find OERs, that is also something of great importance for you, because you will be getting enormous material related to your subjects from any of these sources. So have a look at the slide which is provided here. One of the major OER repositories is the OER MetaFinder. Another one which is very popular is the Creative Commons, and under Creative Commons you have a very large section under which you can find a large amount of material which can be used. Then you have Merlot, you have OER Commons, you have Skills Commons, and you also have a list of OER textbooks and courses under the last link which is given on the screen. Now, we all can be authors of OERs also. Let's not limit ourselves. We have the potential of being authors of OERs also, and these places or these sites where you can be authors of OER are given in the slide given on your front page, and that is one under TED. You have one site under TED where you can try out creating an OER lesson. Then under Merlot also you have the same kind of feature which is available, but please do ensure that the content that you add under all these kinds of additions and deletions are truly covered under the OER license. This, friends, brings us to the end of the very first session under the live classroom mechanism of Indira Gandhi National Open University Regional Center, Vadagara. We hope to bring more newer and enlightening kinds of topics for discussion from a wide range of academics who will from time to time come here and present topics of importance for all of us. I hope you enjoyed this first session. If you have any doubts or any clarification or any suggestions to make in this particular topic that we have dealt with today, please do mail in to us, and our email ID is very simple. It is rcvatagara@ignore.ac.in. Let me repeat, rcvatagara@ignou.ac.in. This is our email ID, and you can definitely mail in your suggestions, even your criticism, as well as the kind of things that you would like to see on the live classroom. I cannot assure us that every topic that is being discussed here will be of interest to all people, but definitely we'll try to incorporate many of the areas where the students have a felt need and where they need more impetus. Thank you once again. Thank you for giving me such a patient hearing, and it was wonderful interacting with you. Thank you. Bye.